Thank you, Gus. Thank you, Fulfillment Fund. So again, thank you everyone for joining us on this Tuesday evening. We're really excited to be here. And we'll just get right into it. So, but as Gus said, I'm Sandra Valle. I'm Assistant Director for Casa Ballet. And Yusel Paez, our director, will be co-hosting in a bit. But today we are talking about college match and fit. So I know I believe we have a mix of parents and students, but I do want to kind of point out this is very much, I really want to talk to students today. Because really at the end of the day, this is your experience and your degree and your growth. And so I really want to talk about, what the things we should be thinking about. So most presentations are built to answer as many questions as possible. This presentation is a little different. It's actually built to make you come up with a whole lot of questions by the end of the workshop. It's gonna hopefully make you think and consider different things you haven't thought about. But all of this is good to help you make the best decision for yourself and your family. So we'll get right into it. So again, our presenters, I'm Sandra Valle, and we have Yusel Paez, our director. Our mission, as Gus said, we are California Student Opportunity and Access Program. We work with first generation underrepresented students here in the Los Angeles area. We work with schools in LAUSD, Pasadena, and El Monte. You see some of our staff there from last year. So we'll jump right into it. So which college to choose, right? So hopefully everybody here is already thinking about that. What does that look like? And so many options. 4-year, 2-year, public, private, community college, liberal arts, large school, small school. What does those look like? Where do you want to live? Are you going to live at home? Do you want to go to a dorm? Even bigger picture, do you want to move far away? Do you want to go East Coast, West Coast, Midwest? There's so many things to decide, right? So that's what we're here to talk about. And the reality is I'm not going to be able to help you decide it by the end of the presentation today, but hopefully you're going to get a lot closer because you're going to really understand what's really important to you and what you really need to succeed. So we'll go into it. What is college match? Match refers to the likelihood that a college or university will actually admit a student based on their grades, their test scores, and all of the criteria that colleges require. And each college has different requirements, so it's important to know what those are. But match really just means that you as a student feel comfortable that you meet all of the requirements for what that university or college is looking for and that you will be offered admission. So that's what a strong match is. College fit. Now that's a little different. That's really selecting colleges and universities based on an individual student's social, academic, and financial needs. Really, to sum it all up, it's all about me being the student. Where we say one size does not fit all, that's what we mean. Every college or university is different. Every campus is different. Every program is different. And so it's important for you as a student to know who you are, what you're looking for, and what you need to succeed in college and in any post-secondary options that you choose. And this is where it's really important. One size does not fit all. So although, we, especially here, we're here in Los Angeles, we know our big name schools, right? UCLA, USC, we're incredibly lucky here. I was at a conference once nationally and they said you can't throw a rock in California without hitting a college or university, and it's pretty accurate. We have so many options here. So I definitely want to, in this area, I definitely want to kind of jump in and say, don't think in terms of name brand. You got to really do your research and figure out what school is best for you. And that's what we're going to talk about. What should you be considering? What should you be thinking about? Are there any questions at this point before I move on? Okay. So admission requirements. This is pretty straightforward. This is definitely part of your application process, but it's what are the admission requirements for a school? Do I need to take certain tests? What is their GPA? What activity or programs are they looking for that I may have participated in? Do I need letters of recommendation? Who can I get to write those for me? And very importantly, certainly here in, this is very California specific, do you know what the A through G requirements are? So those are the classes required to meet basic admission requirements for the 4-year systems, for the CSU and the UC system. I'm not going to go into it too much, but if you don't know what those are, definitely write a note to yourself and make sure you're asking someone. You can always reach out to us later. But you definitely want to know, are you meeting those requirements within your school to be eligible to apply to either a CSU or a UC campus? So another, one of the first things to really think about in terms of, where do you want to go? Location. And I think when we think about location, we definitely think of those big names, right? Like I want to be at this big campus, or maybe it's a smaller liberal arts school, but we definitely started that's usually where we first think about. But there's a lot to think about here. So one, do you want to stay local? Do you want to try something new? City or nature? So that's really important. Are you a city kid, or do you like to be out in nature and somewhere where you're just a lot more rural maybe? So I always give my example. I went to UC Santa Cruz. That's in the middle of the Redwood Forest, just right in the central coast of California. It's absolutely beautiful. But if you're not comfortable hiking to class, and I do mean hiking, it's not for you. And if you don't like the rain, it's not for you, because it rains about 8 months of the year, and it's real rain. It's beautiful rain, but if you're not a rain person, if that's going to make you uncomfortable and unhappy, it's not going to be a good fit for you, right? But if you like the city, there's so many, San Jose State is right in the middle of the city. Portland State is right in the middle. You walk across the street and you're in downtown, and it's amazing. So those are those experiences you want to have, and where are you going to be comfortable? How close do you want to be from school? Close enough for meals and laundry, or to come home on the weekends? And do you want to just come home during, winter break and other holidays? Does the college that you're looking at require non-local students to live on campus? So a lot of further away colleges will require students who don't live within the area to live on campus for the first year. Are you prepared to do that? Again, rural, urban, weather is really important. So again, it's those things to look at. What's the weather like there throughout the year? If you're, we're in Los Angeles. If you're a Los Angeles, Southern California kid, I'm gonna be honest, we're not used to real weather. We're not used to rain. We're not used to cold. Anything below 72, we're usually cold and complaining. So I can only imagine moving to a campus where it snows, where it's northern New York and it is, sub-zero weather, and right, you have to be prepared. So those are things to think about. It's a combination. It's what are you interested in experiencing, but also what are you going to be comfortable in? Because if you're not comfortable, if the rain makes you sad, that's not going to be a really good place. You're not going to be in a good place to learn, right? And so again, it's about thinking about where are you going to be comfortable and secure and safe enough to learn, but also challenged enough to grow. So things to really think about. Any questions on location or any thoughts? So another major factor that should be thought about is your major. What major, what area of study do you want to focus on? At the end of the day, at the end of your 4 or 5 years or your 2-year program, what do you want on that degree? What do you want that to say? What do you want to focus on? And not every college or university carries all majors or carries the same majors. So it's really important to have that, to understand what do you want to study and how do you want to study it. What do I mean by how do you want to study it? Well, some universities are practical. So the CSU system, for example, the California State University system here in California is what we call a practical system. They're all about putting students into the work directly. The UC system is known for their research. Do you want to do research? Do you want to do high-level work with professors? That's the kind of work and the kind of study you can think about, and you have that opportunity at the UC system. You, of course, have it at the CSU system as well, but it may not be as sort of on a bigger scale as the UC system can offer. So again, how strong is this school in the student's interested area of study, right? So maybe the major there is a smaller major, and you really want to focus on your major, whether it's STEM, whether it's in the arts, and so that's important to know. Do they have that to offer you? Can the student be admitted as undecided or undeclared? So many students and many universities do allow you to come in without having to say, this is exactly what I want to study. And I want to put a little asterisk on this part of the presentation to understand that it's normal, and the average student changes their major at least 3 times, I would say. I know I changed mine about 4. And that's actually a good sign. So parents, if you're listening, that's actually a good sign. That means the student is really enmeshed in school, really experiencing new things, and therefore really understanding who they are and what they want to study. Realizing I tried path A, that didn't work for me. But you know what, this other path, oh, I think that's where I'm gonna succeed. That's what I want to do. So nothing's wrong with changing your major. It's perfectly normal. It's also perfectly normal not to. Some people just know what they want to do, and it's their passion, and they're there, and they're able to complete it. So this is where it's definitely really important to do all of your research. Go on all the way. Every college or university has really good websites, and you can go in and research exactly what you're looking for and what kind of career opportunities they have, and internships. Again, if you want to be able to participate in research in your field of study, or actually work towards your future goals while you're a student as an intern, does that college or university have that opportunity for you? So another factor to really consider is student and faculty diversity. So how diverse is the staff and faculty at your campus that you're looking at? So you see different examples there, right? There's ethnic diversity. There's certainly gender diversity. Is that important to you, that there be a good mix? Or do you want to be at an all-male school or at an all-female school, identified school? What kind of financial aid is received? So that is also really good. That's economic diversity. How, what kind of backgrounds are the students coming from? Geographic diversity. So is everybody at this school coming from pretty much the same area, or are they coming from all over the country or all over the state? And those are really things to think about in terms of your experience as a student and making connections and meeting new people. And really, again, this part is much more about growth, but also comfort. You want to be it's okay to have a comfort zone and to recognize that you certainly want to be with people who you share similar, cultural interests with. That's perfectly fine. So you can do your research. Most colleges and universities, if not all, have resource centers geared at different identifying markers, so such as based on gender, based on sexuality, based on ethnicity, based on religion. Do they have a strong program? So if you are a young Jewish student and you really want to be part of a Jewish student association, do they have a good, Jewish student program there that you can connect with? So that's a really, that's another thing to consider. Any questions here? I'll kind of pause in between if there's anything.
Yeah, we actually have a good amount of questions. So thank you for those asking questions. So we'll start with, I think the first one I saw was in the chat, so I'll answer that one. You mentioned about locations, considering your majors, and considering what school you're going to, about locations and just your major. So a student asked if this also applies to studying abroad.
Absolutely, that's a great question. So if you really want to study abroad and you already know where you want to study, not every school has a program in every country, right? So if you know for a fact, I want to study in South Africa, you have to go look at the different universities and see if they partner with programs in South Africa that you will be able to be a part of. If you know for a fact you want to do, study abroad in Italy, again, do your research and figure out, does that school have a program in Italy? But also, it doesn't always have to be completely tied to your major. Usually that's kind of the fun thing about study abroad, is it usually gives you a chance to study something different for a semester. But if it's really connected to your major, that's another good area to research. So thank you for bringing that up. Yes, definitely.
All right, great. Also, student asked, they're not sure what they want to study. They're in between two different majors. What would you recommend for them to do?
Oh, great question. So if they're in between two different majors, honestly, it's going to depend on how close those majors are. Now, if they're both in the similar field, most colleges and universities will have similar programs that support each other. And it's also, again, do your research. In some schools, you can do both majors. You can have one as your major, which is your main area of study, and then you can do the other program as a minor. Now, if you really want to get, what's the word I'm looking for? If you really want to get in there, you can actually double major, and you can actually study both and get 2 bachelor's degrees at the same time, one in each of the programs that you're looking at. But some majors or just some areas of studies go across all majors. So I'll share. For example, I loved all of the social sciences, anthropology, psychology, history, and I ended up majoring in feminist studies because I realized I could put all of these in one major. I could take classes from all of these different fields, and it allowed me to be able to do that and explore my interests while staying in one major. So that's really exciting. So also don't necessarily think that you can go, even if one is science and one is in a social sciences. You can definitely, no matter what college or university, you can definitely build a bridge to bring your those two interests together.
Perfect. And we have a few of them that are major related. A lot of questions on majors. So one of them is, what's the difference between a major and a minor? And I guess also, does it cost more when you want to switch majors?
Oh, great questions. It does not necessarily cost more when you want to change majors. Usually you have to declare your major. Now it depends on when you enroll. If you enroll in a four-year college as a freshman, you usually have to declare your major no later than the second year, by the end of your second year. So you have a good year and a half to really explore and really narrow that down. They don't make you really focus until the end of the second year, because when you come back for your third year, at that point, usually you are considered an upper division student. And at that point, you're studying pretty much just your major. And it's really fun. Now you have hopefully your general education classes out of the way, and you're really able to focus on that. So no, there's not a cost. There would be a cost if you were almost done and you have to add additional years to switch a major. So that's why it's really important when you're there to explore, to talk to your college counselors and advisors, to make sure you're making the right decision. Because if you're in year 4 and you switch it right to graduate and you want to add another, at that point you're actually adding another major, then it would cost more in terms of adding more time to your education. And the second question was the difference, right?
Yeah, so and there's another question that's pretty similar to it, so maybe we can kill two birds with one stone. So what's the difference between a major and a minor? And how hard is it to major and minor? Or do you recommend just double majoring?
So a minor is just another area of study that you can focus on. It's going to be slightly less courses than a major. So your major is going to be a full course load, and it's a full program, versus your minor is usually less classes, a little bit more than half of what you would normally take to get to a major. So generally, I know a lot of students who were able to carry a major and a minor without adding additional time. Usually, especially if they're related, a lot of the classes cross over. And so you're not necessarily taking a whole bunch of additional classes. And then, I'm sorry, what was the other question? Which minor?
It was a difference between a major and minor. And then do you recommend a major and a minor, or would you recommend a double major instead?
Well, honestly, that's going to depend on the student. If double major, it's going to be a lot of work. That's not to say that it's not worth it. But if it's important to you to carry like 2 bachelor's degrees, 1 in each of these areas, and again, you're going to have that year and a half to really talk about it. And I definitely recommend that first year. Again, you meet with your college advisors, but not just your college advisors. Meet with the professors in those programs. They will tell you if it's worth it. They're going to tell you, yeah, you absolutely should, because this will help you get this kind of a job later. Or they'll say, actually, it's not really necessary. You can minor in it, but you don't need the full degree, because as long as you're, doubling up with your major, you're good. But again, that's where it's going to be really important that first year and a half that you're in school, to really talk to not only the college counselors, advisors, but really go to those office hours, get to know those professors and ask them, I'm thinking about double majoring. What do you recommend? Because they're already in the field. They're going to tell you if it's worth it or not.
Great.
Just real quick, if I can just jump in, just highlight a little bit about the declaring a major. For those students, I know that I saw a question about community college. So community college is also a system of higher ed where we want you to declare a major also by the second year. So it's actually like really taking in parallel to those 4 years. So because you have to do a lot of major preparation And some majors require more classes at the community colleges than others. And so just for those students that are thinking about going the community college route and then transferring, is that like that first year and a half, as Sandra has been saying, is really like a great time for exploring, for like really thinking about what you want to do, what you want to focus on. But always have at the back of your mind that, you know, declaring a major and hopefully finding something that like you're really passionate about, that you really want to do and really want to major in, is just a good idea. And it's something that more and more consistently we see that the colleges and universities really do want you to start declaring. And just to underscore, the visiting, you know, student services departments, counselors, like really being involved and really building that network and those relationships with professors and faculty is super important. I know that when I was in college, I was always like, and we'll talk a little bit more about it as we're talking about like that fit, right? Super shy student, really didn't want to go knocking on those doors. So probably shouldn't have gone to a big university like UC Berkeley, but that just really was me not exploring and doing my research. But it's really important, as Sandra has been talking about, going out there and putting yourself out there and asking these questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Sandra. We have a lot of questions. Do you want to continue with the presentation and then we'll come back to questions?
Yeah, we'll come back. I'll go on to the next couple slides.
But thank you everybody for asking questions. This is awesome. So not that we don't appreciate it, we want to get through some of the content, but we'll definitely come back to them. So if you have questions, continue asking them, and I promise you we're going to try our best to answer all of them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, great. Another really important factor to consider: your out of classroom opportunity. You're not just going to college or university, whether it's, again, to your point, it's a 2-year or a 4-year or even longer. You're not just going to learn and to get a certain degree. You're also going to grow. And hopefully you're also going to go to connect with other people and start building your friends and your social network. And this is where it's really important to be connected on campus. A large part of student success is being connected, having a group, either it's friends, some kind of extracurricular activity, something where you are really feel like you're part of campus. So this is really important. What's important to you? Does that university have it already? So we have examples there: musical groups, dance groups, sports. But for example, if you are really passionate about joining a sorority or fraternity, do your research, because believe it or not all universities have a strong Greek life. And if that's important to you, make sure that they have that, if that's where you're applying to. A lot of these smaller, like the Hip Hop Dance Club or Hermanas Unidas, the great thing about programs like that at most colleges and universities is you can start your own. So if there's something that you really want to work, you really want to get together with other students, and whether it's a movie club, whether it's a book club, whether it's dancing, whether it's creating TikTok videos, you can create your own club. And this is absolutely like so much fun and very much recommended. But again, this is all something very important to think about. Most don't, and think, I'll maybe think about that later. But this is actually a very important factor in terms of student success. Again, as a student, parents, if you're listening, you really want your student to be connected to that campus. That social connection leads to so much more support in terms of study groups and just, again, like growing as a student and growing as an adult. So this is something really important. What are the out of classroom opportunities? And again, if sports is really important to you, if it's Greek life, if it's activism, do your research on whether or not that campus has those programs. And I can say now pretty much everything is either online or follow their Instagrams, because when you start following one college's Instagram, you'll start seeing all the other different student programs, social media, and you'll be able to really get a good sense of what's happening on those campuses. Now, another very important factor is cost of attendance, right? Do we know all the facts about how much the college is going to cost? Is a student eligible for scholarships? We answered it for you right there. Yes, every student is, regardless of finances, regardless of GPA. There are so many scholarship opportunities out there. Many of them aren't connected to GPA. Many of them are not connected to economic status, or certainly to citizenship status. There is a lot out there. Will the student be able to live at home? Sometimes it's low cost, but not always. Or will they have to pay for a dorm apartment? The most important part here is that last line. Compare your financial aid packages. So once you've applied and you start receiving, every school is going to offer you a different, what we call a different financial aid package. You're going to get an award letter from each college or university, because each college or university has their own pot of money that they're able to offer, grants, scholarships, loans, and other things that make up financial aid. And so they're all going to look a little different. And this is where it's really important. Certainly reach out to your college counselors. If you're here within LA in the spring, we are going to have award letter, webinars explaining how to really understand what you're reading. But do your comparison to make sure it's the right investment for you. It's always going to be an investment, but is it the right choice? And we understand it's a very, this is very important. And it's definitely what's best for you as a student and your family to really make that important decision and not feel so stressed about it. But believe me, there's so much help out there. But it starts with filling out your FAFSA. So if you are a senior, the federal student aid application just opened October 1st. And if you're here in California, the California DREAM Act application also just opened October 1st for undocumented students. Learning environment. This is where you as a student kind of really have to think about, how do you learn? Do you learn best in large group activities or in small? So there's kind of those examples there, right? Like a large lecture hall, or do you want more intimate, smaller classroom sizes with your classmates and your professors? That balance between studying and having a social life is incredibly important. But it's knowing that how you as a student learn. Again, learning is tricky, right? There's one part where you need to be comfortable enough to be really engaged and to engage in your education. But you also need to be challenged. That's how we all learn. That's how we all grow. So it needs to be a good balance between that. But again, where will you be comfortable, but also challenged? And where will you really be able to grow? So what works for you? Is it a huge campus with lots of people and lots of activity? Or do you want something a little smaller, a little more intimate? And so those are things to look at. Another one, campus size. So I did put my university, because again, I mentioned that UC Santa Cruz is in the middle of the forest. It's also really big and really spread out. There's no central campus here. There's all little smaller campuses all around. And so, again, if that's what works for you, great. But if you want the kind of university where there's a central meeting place where all of the students can go and you kind of know where the middle is, that's really important to know. Again, big campus, small campus. Are you going to be on campus most of the time? Or are you going to be a commuter student? So maybe it's not as important to you on the campus size, because you're going to live at home and you're going to drive in and out. And you may not live there and be there as much. Again, similar, what kind of people are going to be in the area and the community. We kind of talked about it already, like sports and things like that. And I'll go back to that other one on location, that other slide on location, right? Is it a combination of nature? Do you want to be in the city? Do you want a good mix? Those are all things to look at when you're thinking about where to apply and where to accept. Oh, so I just threw this in here before we move on. And we're going to be able to get to questions in just a minute. But I know that there is, I believe, scholarship opportunity. So I want to throw this in there. Our survey code for this workshop is FIT. I'll hand it over to you, Sel, now.
Thank you, Sandra. Sorry, I was answering some of those questions. So definitely some great information. I know that there's some students or families that are asking about the first-gen experience, and absolutely, please ask questions. This is a great group of students asking some great questions. We're like super excited about the interaction and just really getting to know you, at least like in this remote setting. So now when you've explored all of these things and, you've kind of taken into consideration, have your laundry list of all of the things that like you want to look for in a campus, like your strengths and where you think that you might be interested in attending. So what are the next steps? So what can I do to explore my options and make the best decisions? So obviously, just as Sandra has been so eloquently, saying in this presentation, all of the, even like in her own experience and in our experiences in just not really knowing and just going because you want to have like that nice sticker name that says UCLA, USC, which are great universities, and we don't want to downplay any of that. Like, those are wonderful universities, but like she keeps saying, one size doesn't fit all, right? So there are some other options in the Southern California area where like we really want you to go out and explore. And we recognize that right now with COVID and this pandemic, it's just really difficult to maybe do this in the more traditional sense, but hopefully we can give you some feedback and like some ideas on how you can explore some campuses, explore maybe some majors, some college and career exploration. So we'll go on to the next slide. Do I have, okay. So visit tour campuses. So usually when, we are able to get back, for those of you, if there's some non-seniors on this webinar, if we can go back to visiting campuses, then that's going to be great. But right now, all of colleges and universities are offering virtual tours. And sometimes it's just a great experience to just be able to virtually do this, to ask questions. There's some, sometimes we have a little bit more, we feel a lot more comfortable being able to ask these questions in a virtual setting. So for those of you that, like are very comfortable with asking these questions just on a Q&A, this is a great opportunity to just get all of your questions answered. All campuses have these virtual tours. So this is an opportunity for you to see what kinds of students are on campus. When we were talking about different support groups, or, like maybe you want to be in a certain student support group. And so this is the opportunity to really see what the student services that are on campus and what kinds of students are on campus. You get to ask questions of tour guides and current students. So at most universities, students are the tour guides. And so they are current students. They're going through this experience. They have definitely gone through the application process. They can give you some really good feedback and some practical steps on, like what it is to be on their campus and what it is to just really be part of the student body of that particular campus. And so that just leads us to, what is campus life like? So don't be afraid to ask those questions of tour guides, of the campus, of whoever like you can really get in contact with. Is what is it really like? What is the day in the life of a student at UC San Diego? Like, what does that look like? Many of us might think like, oh, you are at the beach 24/7, 365, but they might have different experiences, right? So sometimes looks can be deceiving. So though this is really the time to really ask students, what is it like to be on campus and to be in this particular campus? What is it like to live on the dorm? Maybe they are living in dorms, and that's going to be something that like you're looking at. So what is it like to live there? What is it like to eat at the dining commons? So just different questions that you can actually ask students and just receive some really honest feedback. So what are the different areas of the campus look like? So many students, they have an affinity for like certain places on campus, whether it's a library or whether it's just like, somewhere where they like to eat. So those are just really nice things to know, because it just starts really building that that factor of feeling at home. And you should really feel at home at your campus, because that's where you're going to spend a lot of your time. What does the surrounding neighborhood look like? I'll share with you that when my parents, way back in the Stone Age, because I'm so much older than all of you, but when my mom dropped me off at UC Berkeley, to her, it was the shock of her life. Why would you want to come to this campus where, there was just a big, homeless population that was just around campus. And to her, she was just really afraid. And so she was really like scared to leave her only daughter in this campus. So had I visited UC Berkeley before, I would have probably been able to front load her a little bit and just really explain what the culture is like, what the campus is like. And so, yeah, like it's just really important for you to really feel comfortable with your surrounding neighborhood. So especially if you're the campus or the university that you're really thinking about is smack down in the middle of a city, what is around this city, and like what does that look like? And even like Sandra said, at UC Santa Cruz. So if you don't like to be surrounded by trees, then maybe it's just not the right fit, right? And so we do highlight different websites throughout this presentation for you to just be able to maybe take a snapshot and be able to, you know, like find different opportunities to visit, at least virtually, tour some of these campuses. And so here are some other ones: californiacolleges.edu, bigfuture.edu, collegeboard.org. Definitely all of the campus websites, so all of the university websites, they are offering a lot of information, a lot of workshops just like this. They have open house, like open house. I think UCLA is just had their open house for incoming or for students that are going to be applying to UCLA. So please, please, please navigate those resources, visit those university websites, community college websites. They're very, especially right now during COVID, we are all super active on social media, Instagram. I would even venture to say some of them are on TikTok. So yes, definitely follow them on social media. There's a lot of updates and highlights that I have seen a lot of the universities put up on social media, especially like on their Instagram pages. And it's also an opportunity to ask questions. What I've noticed, especially right now that we're all remote, is that everybody is just so diligent about communication and really over communicating and answering all of those questions. So please visit websites, social media, ask questions. And if there's ever a doubt, just please ask, ask, ask. And the next one, I think. Okay, and so for any of parents that are out there, this is definitely a time. I think this is a great opportunity for families, students, sisters, brothers, anybody to just be able to take part in really some of this research and just in navigating this process, right? So what do we usually advise students? So students should aim at applying to at least 10 different schools. And this is also a good rule of thumb, even for financial aid, as we're talking about financial aid and completing the FAFSA or the California Dream Act application. So there's going to be a mixed bag. So there's going to be safety schools, which we always say, those are the ones that, you know, at least have one that like you're very for sure this is where I am going to be accepted, or a community college. One of the things, sometimes we encounter students that they know they don't want to be in California anymore. So I am going to go, you know, like out of state. And we always advise, always have at least one California school, because if there's something that happens, we don't know life, like right now, especially right now, what we're experiencing as we're doing all of this remote, is if you stay in California, then at least, you know, like that could be like one of your safety schools, and you should have a California school in one of like these 10 schools in one of these different areas. So safety schools, at least one close to home, like I'm talking about, at least one California campus, something close to home, where if you get cold feet at the end of the day, you know, you could stay close to home. A good chance school, you know, you probably have, like it says, a good chance to being accepted into this university where, you know, the grades seem good, like your, some of like your extracurricular activities, it's just like a good chance that you're going to get into that school. and definitely have at least one reach school. So we all have hopes, dreams. We've all definitely have thought about seeing ourselves in that like dream university, and maybe like your dream is your good chance school or your safety school, but maybe your dream school is like a little bit where you think like, wow, that's a stretch. It's a little bit far to reach, but by all means, we always say you should try, put that down, apply. We put it down on your FAFSA or California Dream Map application if it's a school in California, and definitely, you know, that should be one of like those 10 schools that you're applying for. So yeah, questions. I know that there's a lot of activity on the chat.
Yeah, most definitely. So thank you, you said, for trying to answer some of the questions. I did the same, but I couldn't even get through half of these. So let's, yeah, they're all over. I'm going to try to condense them to the ones that are maybe similar, if possible. Some of them are kind of similar topics. Okay, let's see. When you get accepted at a college, is that when you decide what to minor in if you want to?
So not right away. So a minor is not required. It's always in addition to your major. So as we mentioned, your major, most colleges and universities will ask you to declare a major when you enter, or at least to apply to a major, but you don't have to make it official again, usually until at least towards the end of your second year. A minor is in addition to, so you would declare it sometime between that second, you could even add it usually that third year. But it's not a requirement. So they don't necessarily have like rules about that you have to do it. But if it's something you're interested in, you again talk to your college counselors and advisors to understand when you absolutely have to declare it, so that you're on the right study path to be able to actually complete it on time.
Right, perfect. And then I think these are probably the last questions on majors and minors, so I kind of just want to get these out of the way because I know we had a lot on those. And I think we had a similar question to this earlier, but is it possible to have a minor in a different field than your major? And then another student asked, I heard you can double major and double minor. Is that even possible?
Somebody is really competitive there, which is great. I'll be honest, it's absolutely possible. Now, is it sort of worth it? Is it feasible? That is another story, because that is an immense workload. So you're definitely study load as well. You're definitely not going to be able to work in terms of like actual employment. That's going to be a lot of classes, and you know, it's in some cases, depending on what you're trying to study, again, it may not be required for your career. It may not be required to sort of move forward in what you're looking at. So that's where it's going to be really important once you're on campus to really talk to, again, college advisors and professors to find out, is this worth it, or is there another way around it? Maybe I can still do a double major but not have to do the minor part. Because again, you also want to enjoy college, and you don't want to bite off more than you can chew, as they say. Again, this is about how are you going to successfully complete your education within, you know, 4 or 5 years.
Great. On that note, if you apply to college but are undecided, would it take you more time to complete it or to graduate?
It really depends on the college and the student themselves, and where they end up. Now, at the end of a year and a half, 2 years, they're still undecided. That's a little worrisome, I'll be honest, and that will take you longer if you haven't necessarily been studying towards something. Now, if you stay, those first 2 years are for your general education. So this is really for your 4-year universities, right? Those first 2 years is really focusing on your general education courses. So as long as you're doing that, you're still on track. But you definitely, you know, really want to be focused on it. Again, most 4 years do not allow you to come in undecided or undeclared, or they are going to really kind of like work with you to try to get you to declare sooner than those 2 years. And if you're looking at those really competitive, what we call impacted majors, usually those in the STEM fields or those really popular fields, psychology, business, those they do want you to declare early on, because those spaces fill up. It's not sort of an infinite space for all students to be able to study. They can only serve a certain number of students. And that's where it's important, if you're gonna look at those careers, to really go in early.
Great, thank you. What do you think colleges prefer? Graduating high school in 3 years or taking more AP and college classes?
Great question. So I'm going to pull you still in a minute, but I think honestly it's going to depend on the college or university. Most colleges and universities, so for example, the UC system looks at, I believe it's a 14 point, areas that they look at. So it's not just GPA, it's not just testing. Obviously, those things are going to make you much more competitive in terms of those higher, colleges and universities. But it's really, they want to look at a well-rounded student. Colleges and universities don't just look at GPA. They want to make sure, again, the student is also a good fit for them. They want to know when they accept a student that you're going to not only succeed at their school, because at the end of the day, they want you to make them look good. They want you to graduate because it makes them look good. They want you to go out there and build your career because you can always go back and say, I'm an alumni of this university, and it makes them look good. And they want you to succeed. And so they're going to look at that. They're going to look at your extracurriculars. They're going to look to see that you're a well-rounded student, that you really enjoyed your high school, but you also really succeeded, that you challenged yourself, that you took on responsibility, and that you took on leadership roles. And they want to see a combination of all of that and not just one area.
Okay, great. Let's see. Would you recommend living on or off campus?
So again, double check, do your research. A lot of colleges and universities require their first year students to live on campus. They want them to have that immersive experience, and they will require that their first year students live on campus. Others are more open and you can live off campus, and basically your housing is up to you. My personal, I would say if you can, even if it's just for a year, or even if it's just for a couple of quarters or a semester, that's a great experience. You're going to learn a lot about yourself and others. And I definitely think it's a really great way to, especially if you're going to a campus not near your home, to really sort of find yourself and find sort of a center on campus and really get to know your campus before you kind of venture out and live off campus and live somewhere where in a city you've never lived in before.
Yeah, and a lot of universities require freshmen to actually live on campus, kind of like what Sandra was saying. So you can kind of just get acclimated to everything, learn the ropes, and then, from there you can, live in an apartment with your friends or other individuals that you want to live with. Yeah. Okay, so a student asked, what if they commit to a school, so I'm guessing the SIR, and then they decide they don't want to go there and they find that another school is a better fit? What would happen?
So this does happen. You said it's going to depend again on the university, but usually once you commit to the SIR, it is you are committed to it. Now that doesn't mean that students don't go up, but you have to immediately communicate with somebody and let them know, somebody at admissions, what's going on. Because another school might find out that you have submitted an SIR to the school, especially if it's in the same system. So for example, if it's the UC system, and that could put your admittance to both campuses in jeopardy. So if you already submitted your SIR to one university and then you realized 2 weeks later you got into this other one because you were on the wait list and that's really where you want to go, then the first thing you need to do is reach out to admissions at that university you submitted your SIR to and explain this. So they will lead you through the process of how to basically unsubmit your SIR and be able to submit it in the proper, in the school that you actually want to go to. And it does happen. They know that because they know that students are put on wait lists for other colleges or universities. So if this happens to you, don't be embarrassed. Don't be afraid to call and be like, yeah, I changed my mind and I kind of don't want to, I don't want to go there anymore. They're used to hearing it. They're not going to give you a hard time. They're just going to say, okay, we need you to do this, this, and that, right? Usually it's some paperwork. And you might lose. Now, the other thing is you'll probably lose your deposit. If you paid a deposit with your SIR, you will not get it back. So that's, that's something to consider. You unfortunately, the college or university will keep it, and that's just how it works. So that's something to think about, and you will have to pay a new SIR deposit for the other college or university that you want to go to.